The clock struck midnight as Marisol discovered the truth buried under layers of deceit. Her sister had been stealing money from their dying mother's care fund, a staggering $50,000 siphoned off in whispers of betrayal. In the dim light of the hospital room, the machines beeped a haunting rhythm, echoing her mother's fading breaths. With tears streaming down her face, Marisol confronted her sister, the silence between them thick with betrayal and rage. What was meant to be a family bond now lay shattered, and in that moment of despair, Marisol made a choice that would change everything. "My name is Marisol. Justice demands a reckoning, and I will not back down." I stormed out of the hospital room, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and confusion. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my lungs, but it was the suffocating weight of betrayal that pressed heavily on my chest. I needed air, space to think, to process what had just unfolded. As I stepped into the hallway, I glanced at the walls lined with faded photographs of smiling families, each picture a stark contrast to my own reality. How could everything appear so perfect on the outside while our family was crumbling inside? I felt the heat of tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, but I fought them back, unwilling to let weakness show itself now. I needed to confront my parents, to demand answers about the secrets they had kept hidden from me. I turned the corner, hoping to find Ruth, but instead, I caught a glimpse of David sitting in the waiting area, his head buried in his hands. I hesitated, torn between the urge to approach him and the instinct to keep my distance. David had always been my protector, my safe haven when the world felt overwhelming. Yet now, he seemed like a man lost in a storm of his own making. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the deep lines etched across his face from years of silent battles. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I had long avoided. "Dad," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. He looked up, his eyes clouded with pain, and for a moment I hesitated, unsure of how to continue. "We need to talk." "Not now, Marisol," he replied, his voice thick with exhaustion. "Your mother needs us." "Needs us? Or needs you?" I shot back, frustration boiling over. The words slipped from my lips before I could reel them in, but I didn't regret them. "You've been absent for so long, Dad. What good are you if you can't even be honest with us?" He flinched at my words, and for a moment I thought he might argue back, but instead he looked defeated, like a soldier who had lost the will to fight. "I'm trying to hold everything together," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You don't understand." "Then make me understand," I cried, desperate for clarity. "Why does it feel like our family is built on lies? Why can't you just tell me the truth?" David's expression shifted, a flicker of shame crossing his features. "It's complicated," he said, finally meeting my gaze. "There are things in our past things you've chosen to ignore," I interrupted, refusing to let him dismiss my questions. "Things that affect me, that affect Caleb." The mention of my brother's name cut through the tension, and I saw a flash of concern on my father's face. He deserves to know what's happening. We all do. Just then, I caught sight of Ruth entering the waiting area, her eyes searching for something, someone. And the moment she spotted us, a look of panic crossed her features. She rushed over, her voice laced with urgency. "Marisol, what's wrong? Why are you two arguing?" "Why are we arguing?" I repeated, the disbelief coursing through me. Maybe because everything is falling apart and no one will just say it. I could feel the walls closing in, the pressure mounting. It was overwhelming, and I had no idea how to navigate the churning emotions swirling around us. "Marisol, please," Ruth began, but I cut her off. "Please what? Just keep pretending that everything is okay?" I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just needed them to understand the gravity of the situation. "I want to know what happened between you two. I want to know what you've kept from me." There was a long silence, the kind that felt thick enough to choke on. David looked at Ruth, And in that shared glance, I could see the depth of their conflict, the unspoken fears and regrets that had driven a wedge between them. It made my heart ache. As much as I wanted to blame them, I realized they were grappling with their own demons, haunted by choices that had woven a complicated web around our family. Finally, Ruth took a step closer, her expression softening. "Marisol, we've tried to protect you from pain," she said gently, "but in doing so, we may have only made things worse." "Protect me? By lying to me?" My voice cracked, the hurt pouring out in waves. "I need to know what's real, Mom." "If you love me, you have to tell me the truth." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt the weight of her sadness. "I never wanted to hurt you, sweetheart. We thought we were making the right choice." "Right choice?" I echoed, feeling a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You're deciding what's right for me without even asking what I want. I'm not a child anymore. I deserve to know what's really going on." Caleb's laughter drifted from down the hall, a sweet sound that cut through our tension like a knife. It reminded me of the innocence that still existed in our family, a stark contrast to the pain we were all grappling with. I glanced toward the sound, and my heart twisted. My little brother was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him, and the thought of him being caught in the crossfire made my resolve strengthen. "We need to do this," I said, turning back to my parents, my voice firm. "All of us, together." It was time to unravel the threads of deception, to bring light into the dark corners of our lives. I could feel the weight of their gazes on me, a mixture of fear and hope, but I refused to back down. Our family had been shattered, but perhaps with honesty, we could begin to piece it back together. I glanced at Caleb, who was seated on the floor, absorbed in a book, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing around him. His innocence felt like both a comfort and a burden. I wanted to shield him from the truth, but I also understood that facing our reality was vital for all of us. "Caleb," I called softly, beckoning him to come closer. He looked up, blinking with curiosity, and set his book aside. "Ya, Marisol?" His voice was bright, like a summer day, contrasting sharply with the heaviness that hung in the air. I hesitated, grappling with how to include him in this moment without overwhelming him. The truth was that he needed to know, but how could I convey the complexities of our situation without shattering his world? "Caleb," I called softly, beckoning him to come closer. He looked up, blinking with curiosity, and set his book aside. "Ya, Marisol?" His voice was bright, like a summer day, contrasting sharply with the heaviness that hung in the air. I hesitated, grappling with how to include him in this moment without overwhelming him. The truth was that he needed to know, but how could I convey the complexities of our situation without shattering his world? "Can you come sit with us for a minute? There's something important we need to talk about." I gestured to the space between my parents and me, hoping he wouldn't sense the tension weaving through our words. As he joined us, I felt a flicker of warmth. Caleb had a way of bringing light into even the darkest conversations. Ruth glanced at me, her brow furrowed with concern. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the same kind that had held her back for so long. "Are you sure about this, Marisol?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I knew she was worried about the fallout, about how revealing our family's secrets could hurt Caleb. "We can't keep living like this," I replied, my resolve hardening. "We owe it to each other to be honest. Caleb deserves to know who we really are." David shifted in his seat, his eyes darting between me and Ruth. His silence spoke volumes, echoing the internal battle he fought between his past and the father he wanted to be. "I don't want to make things worse," he finally said, his voice rough. "I've messed up enough as it is." There was a sorrow in his tone that tugged at my heart. I could see him wrestling with his own regrets, caught between the desire to protect us and the weight of his failures. "None of us are perfect, Dad," I said, my voice steady, even as my heart raced. "But keeping everything bottled up isn't helping. It's only making it worse. I noticed Ruth's hand twitch, as if she longed to reach out to David, but was held back by the years of unspoken grievances. Caleb, who had been listening intently, tilted his head in confusion. "What's going on? Why do you look so serious?" His innocence stung, a reminder of the life I wished we could return to, one where secrets didn't loom like dark clouds overhead. I took a deep breath, attempting to find the right words. "Sometimes families have problems that they don't talk about," I explained gently. "But it's important to share those problems, even if it's hard. It helps us understand each other better." I could see Caleb processing my words, his small brow furrowing as he tried to grasp the concept of adult complexities that felt so far beyond him. "Is this about the fights?" he asked, glancing nervously at our parents. "I thought we were okay." My heart ached at his response. In his mind, our family was still whole, untouched by the reality of our struggles. Ruth reached out, brushing her fingers through Caleb's hair, a gesture that spoke of her love and the pain of the truth she was withholding. "We've had some difficulty, sweetheart, but it's nothing you need to worry about right now," she said softly, though I could see the cracks in her facade. "No, Mom," I interjected, my determination surging. "He should know the truth. Caleb, sometimes people hurt each other, even when they love each other. It can be because of misunderstandings or mistakes. It's not your fault, but it's something we need to face." I watched as Caleb's face transformed from confusion to concern. David shifted again, his eyes clouded with regret. "I never wanted to hurt any of you. I thought I was protecting you." His voice broke slightly, and I could see the internal struggle reflected in his expression. A part of me wanted to comfort him, to tell him that it was okay, but I understood that forgiveness was a journey we all had to embark on individually. "Protecting us doesn't mean hiding from us," I replied gently. "We're stronger when we face things together." A heavy silence hung in the air, the weight of our unspoken truths pressing down on us. Caleb looked between David and Ruth, sensing the tension, and I could see the spark of fear igniting in his eyes. "Are we going to stay together?" he asked, his voice small and fragile. It broke me to see him so vulnerable. "I don't want us to break apart." The sincerity in his question pierced through the heavy atmosphere like a beacon of innocence amidst the turmoil. I knelt down to his level, meeting his gaze. "We're still a family no matter what happens," I assured him, feeling a surge of protective instinct. "It's just going to take some work to mend the parts that are broken." As I spoke, I hoped that my words could be a promise, a thread of hope that could bind us together again. Ruth's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and David nodded slowly, as if my words had sparked something within him. "I'll do everything it takes to make this right," he vowed, his voice steady now. I could sense a shift within him, a glimmer of the father I had once known. Caleb's face brightened slightly, reassured by the prospect of our family sticking together. "Can we have pizza for dinner?" he asked, a hint of his playful spirit returning. I chuckled softly, the tension easing just a little. "We can have pizza if we all work together on this," I replied, knowing that small moments like this could help us find our way back to each other. As the conversation began to shift from the weight of our struggles to the possibility of healing, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. Together, we would face our truths, and maybe, just maybe, we could build a stronger family from the ashes of our past. If you're finding this story engaging and want to stay updated on Marisol's journey, subscribe for more. The path ahead is filled with challenges, but together, we can navigate the complexities of family and love. The day after our heart-to-heart, a strange tension settled over the house. It was as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. Caleb, blissfully unaware of the shifting undercurrents, was busy constructing a makeshift fort in the living room, draping blankets over chairs and giggling with delight. I watched him for a moment, my heart aching at the innocence he carried. He didn't know the weight of the secrets clinging to our family like shadows, but part of me wished he could remain in that blissful ignorance just a little longer. Ruth was in the kitchen, her usual smile replaced by a furrowed brow. I could see her chopping vegetables, her hands moving almost mechanically, as if her mind was elsewhere. The aroma of simmering garlic filled the air, but instead of bringing comfort, it only heightened my anxiety. I approached her cautiously, uncertain of how to bridge the gap that had widened between us over the years. "Mom," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "Are you okay?" She looked up, startled, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of the warmth I missed so dearly. "I'm fine, sweetheart," she replied, though her eyes betrayed her. There was a sadness there, a depth of sorrow that seemed to stretch beyond my comprehension. "Just busy with dinner." I nodded, but something deep inside me churned. I could sense there was more she wasn't saying, more that she was holding back for my sake. I wanted to reach out, to shake her from her silence, but I didn't know how. David had retreated to the garage, spending hours tinkering with old tools and bits of machinery. It was his way of escaping, I realized, much like I often did with my own thoughts. I could hear the occasional clang of metal, a reminder of the man he used to be, before the shadows of his past consumed him. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but fear gripped me. What if the truth shattered the fragile bond we had begun to rebuild? What if it drove him even further away? As evening approached, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I gathered Caleb, beckoning him with a smile that felt forced but necessary. "Hey, buddy, how about we play a game?" His face lit up, and for a moment, I felt a surge of happiness seeing his excitement. We set up a board game on the kitchen table, and I hoped that, in the midst of laughter and playful banter, I might catch a glimpse of my parents reconnecting. To my relief, Ruth joined us, her apprehension momentarily forgotten as she took a seat next to Caleb. We played for a while, the sound of dice rolling and laughter filling the air. For those fleeting moments, it was as if the weight of our troubles had lifted. I glanced at David, who lingered in the doorway, uncertainty etched on his face. After a moment's hesitation, he stepped into the room, drawn by the laughter and warmth. The game unfolded, and I felt a fragile sense of normalcy wash over us, but it didn't last. Midway through, Caleb knocked over a stack of cards, sending them flying everywhere. In the ensuing chaos, David's face twisted in frustration, a reaction that shattered the moment. "Can't you be more careful?" he snapped, his tone harsher than intended. Caleb's smile vanished, replaced by confusion and hurt. "I'm sorry, Dad," he mumbled, his voice small. I could feel the atmosphere shift, the laughter dissolving into an awkward silence. My heart raced as I looked from David to Caleb, searching for a way to mend this before it spiraled out of control. "Dad, it was an accident," I interjected, my voice steady. "He didn't mean to." David's eyes hardened for a moment, and I could see the internal struggle etched on his face. Part of him wanted to lash out, while another part recognized the innocence of Caleb's mistake. After a beat of silence, he sighed, shoulders slumping as the fight faded from him. "I know," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, buddy." Caleb's expression slowly returned to one of trust, his small smile re-emerging as he accepted the apology. The tension hung in the air, but I sensed that perhaps David was starting to wrestle with his demons in a new way. As the evening wore on, I felt a tiny spark of hope igniting once more. We finished the game, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I caught a glimpse of laughter shared among us. The cracks in our family was still there, but they were beginning to weave together in a way that felt promising. I yearned for the day when we could talk about our truths openly, without fear or hesitation. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with thoughts of the future. I knew we had a long way to go, and the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But deep down, I believed we could confront our hidden truths together. With each passing day, I felt a quiet determination grow within me, a resolve to uncover the secrets that had haunted my family for too long. The silence had been deafening, but it was time to break free and embrace the noise of our truth. I wasn't just Marisol anymore. I was becoming the voice of our family, ready to speak up and demand the love we all deserved. I woke up one morning with a sense of urgency thrumming in my chest. The sun streamed through my window, painting patterns on the walls. But I hardly noticed. My mind raced with the conversations I needed to have, the questions that demanded answers. Caleb was still asleep, his soft breathing a reminder of the innocence I wanted to protect. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and made my way to the kitchen. The smell of coffee was in the air, and I found Ruth sitting at the table, her fingers wrapped tightly around a steaming mug. She looked up as I entered, her eyes betraying a mix of worry and hope. "Good morning, Marisol," she said softly, trying to mask her tension with a smile. I could see it in her face, the unspoken worries that had become a part of our daily lives. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really," I admitted, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. "I can't shake this feeling that we need to talk about everything." Ruth's expression shifted, her shoulders tensed slightly, as if preparing for a storm. "What do you mean?" "I mean the secrets, Mom. I can't pretend like nothing is wrong anymore. David isn't the same. And Caleb deserves to know the truth." The words spilled out before I could second-guess myself. Her gaze dropped to the table, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her mug. "Honey, you know your father has been struggling. He loves you both, but there are things he's dealing with that are complicated." "Complicated or just painful?" I pressed, my heart pounding. I was tired of tiptoeing around the issues that consumed us. We can't keep living like this. I need to understand why he's changed, and I think Caleb deserves to know why we can't talk about it. Ruth sighed, a sound filled with layers of conflict. "It's not easy for me either, Marisol. I want to protect you and your brother from the harsh realities of life, but I know that in doing so, I might be hurting you both even more." I leaned forward, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "Mom, I'm not a little girl anymore. I can handle the truth. And Caleb, he may be young, but he senses that something is off. We can't keep hiding from it." Before she could respond, the front door creaked open and David stepped inside, his face shadowed with exhaustion. The sight of him made my heart twist. I remembered when he used to be my hero, the man who could lift me up with a smile. Now it felt like he was drifting further away with each passing day. "Morning," he said quietly, barely looking up as he shuffled toward the coffee pot. I could feel the tension in the air and my stomach tightened. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked, my voice stronger than I felt. He paused, turning to look at me, surprise flickering in his eyes. "About what?" "About what's happening with our family. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't." He glanced at Ruth, who was now watching him with a mixture of concern and encouragement. "Marisol?" "No, please," I interrupted, my heart racing. "I need to know why you've been distant. Why you've been shutting us out. It's tearing us apart." David's expression hardened momentarily. The shadows of his struggles etched deep into his features. "I'm trying, Marisol. I'm trying to get my life back on track. But there are things I've done, things I'm ashamed of. I don't want to burden you or Caleb with my mistakes." "Your mistakes are our mistakes too," I said, my voice trembling. "We're a family. We should face these things together." Ruth's hand reached for David's, and in that moment, I could see the love and turmoil in their connection. "David, it's time," she urged gently. "The kids deserve to know the truth." I held my breath, my heart pounding as I awaited his response. "I just don't want to hurt you," he finally said, his voice breaking. "I thought by keeping you in the dark, I could spare you the pain, but I see now that it's not working." "Then let us decide what we can handle," I replied, feeling a surge of courage. "We're stronger than you think." He stared at me, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of the father I had once known. "Okay," he finally conceded, his voice barely above a whisper. "But promise me you'll listen to everything, no matter how hard it is to hear." "I promise," I said, feeling a rush of relief as I took a deep breath. "Things haven't been easy for me," he continued, his gaze shifting to the floor. "I've been struggling with my job and my past decisions. I thought I could fix things alone. I didn't want to drag you down with me." Ruth's expression softened, and she nodded. "David, we're here for you. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself." As he spoke, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. David's honesty was the first step toward healing, and I realized that vulnerability could be a form of strength. "Caleb doesn't understand why you're not around as much, Dad," I said, trying to keep the conversation flowing. "He thinks you don't love him." The pain in David's eyes was unmistakable. "That's not true," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I love him more than anything. I didn't know how to face him without feeling like a failure." I could sense the vulnerability beneath his bravado, and it stirred something deep within me. "You're not a failure. We all struggle. We just need to face it together as a family." As I spoke, I felt the walls between us beginning to crack. I wanted my family back, the one filled with laughter and warmth. I wanted Caleb to grow up in a home where love was palpable, not suffocated by unspoken fears. Ruth's eyes glistened with tears, and she reached for David again. "Let's work on this, together." David nodded slowly, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in what felt like ages. "All right, let's do it. I don't want to lose you guys." In that moment, the tension that had gripped our home began to loosen. We were stepping onto a path of honesty, one that could lead us back to each other. I felt the first glimmer of hope pierce through the darkness that had clouded our lives. Together, we could face the truth, and together, we would find a way to heal. As we sat in the living room, the once familiar space now felt charged with anticipation, like the quiet before a storm. I glanced at my mother, Ruth, who shifted in her seat, her expression a mix of determination and fear. David's posture was rigid, his hands clenching and unclenching as if bracing himself for an impact. Caleb, innocent and unaware of the weightiness of the moment, played quietly in the corner, oblivious to the storm brewing among us. "Where do we start?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, yet it echoed around the room. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The secrets had festered for too long, and it was time to peel back the layers of silence that had shrouded our family. My heart raced, and I felt a mix of dread and anticipation in the pit of my stomach. Would the truth shatter us? Or could it somehow strengthen our bonds? David looked up, his eyes meeting mine. There was a flicker of vulnerability in his gaze, a momentary crack in the facade he'd built around himself. "I think we start with what happened between your mother and me," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of unsaid words. It was a starting point I hadn't anticipated, yet it felt right. If my father was willing to confront his past, maybe we could piece together the present. Ruth inhaled sharply, her expression tightening. "David, are you sure that's where we should begin?" she asked, her voice soft yet firm. I could see the conflict etched on her face, a struggle between the loyalty she felt towards my father and the truths she had kept hidden. I wished she would feel empowered to speak freely, to acknowledge the pain that had lingered for years. "Mom, I need to understand," I interjected, feeling the urgency of the moment wash over me. "I can't keep living in the dark. This affects all of us." Caleb continued to play, blissfully unaware of the emotional whirlwind swirling around him, and for a moment I envied his innocence. David let out a shaky breath, and for the first time I saw the fear beneath his bravado. "There were choices I made, decisions that put a rift between us. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was only pushing you away," he confessed, each word a tangible piece of regret. It hurt to hear, but I appreciated his honesty. In that moment, a flicker of understanding ignited in my chest. What do you mean? I pressed, my heart pounding with each question. The more we unwrapped our past, the more I realized how deeply intertwined our lives were, each thread leading back to decisions that had far-reaching consequences. After Caleb was born, I lost myself. The pressures of being a father, of providing for you all, felt suffocating. I made mistakes, David admitted, his voice cracking. I could feel the weight of his struggles seep into the room, and I realized how long he had been battling his demons alone. You isolated yourself, and it affected us all, Ruth said, her tone tinged with sadness. It was clear that her love for him was still strong, but it was also clear that she had suffered in silence, holding on to a burden that should have been shared. Caleb giggled from the corner, his laughter piercing through the tension like a ray of sunlight. I glanced at him, wishing he could remain untouched by the burdens that plagued us. I didn't want him to experience the same pain I had endured. The innocence of childhood felt like a fleeting dream, and my heart ached for him. But Mom, you had secrets too, I said, turning my gaze towards her. I need to know everything. All the pieces matter. The silence that followed was thick, and I could sense the struggle within her as she grappled with the weight of her own truths. Ruth stared at the floor, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. I didn't want to hurt you, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could shield you from the pain of knowing what really happened between your father and me. I didn't want to break what little semblance of a family we had left. But hiding it only made things worse, I countered gently. I wanted her to feel that her voice mattered, that her pain was validated. We can't heal until we face the truth, no matter how hard it is. She nodded slowly, and the tears began to spill from her eyes. I thought keeping everything in would make it easier, but all it did was build a wall between us, she admitted, her vulnerability striking me. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but the gravity of the moment felt more important than any gesture of sympathy. I'm scared, she confessed, her voice trembling. Scared of what the truth will do to us. David reached out for her hand, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the partnership they once shared. We've been living in fear for too long, he said softly. It's time we let go of that fear together. As the weight of their shared history hung heavy in the air, I felt a renewed sense of responsibility. It was my turn to be the bridge between them, to facilitate this conversation that could either tear us apart or mend the frayed edges of our family. We can do this, one step at a time, I said, my heart swelling with determination. Caleb finally approached us, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. What's wrong? He asked, his innocent curiosity cutting through the heaviness. I smiled at him, grateful for his presence, a reminder that love and hope could still exist amidst our turmoil. Nothing we can't fix, buddy, I reassured him, ruffling his hair. His face lit up with a smile, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope for all of us. The path ahead was daunting, but if we faced our fears together, we might find a way back to the love that had always been there. Hidden beneath the layers of pain and misunderstanding, as we began to peel back the layers of our family's past, I felt the stirrings of a newfound resilience within me. I was ready to confront the unknown, to embrace the truth, whatever it may be. In sharing our stories, I believed we could forge a stronger bond, one that could withstand any storm. I invite anyone reading this to reflect on their own familial struggles and triumphs. Each of our stories carries the power to heal, to connect, and to inspire. Please share yours with me. We can learn from each other, and together we can find strength in our shared experiences. The days following that event were a whirlwind of emotions, each one more tumultuous than the last. I found myself grappling with the need to understand, to grasp the reality of what had been laid bare before me. My father, once a constant source of strength, now felt like a shadow, a ghost of the man I had known. David wandered around the house, lost in his thoughts, sometimes staring out the window as if he were searching for answers in the clouds. I could see the weight of his regrets pressing down on him, and it troubled me. I wanted to reach out, to ask him why things had turned this way. But I also felt a barrier between us, a chasm filled with unspoken words and shared pain. Ruth, on the other hand, seemed more present, yet wrapped in her own turmoil. She flitted from room to room, her mind clearly occupied with the heavy secrets she had carried for years. Whenever I caught her gaze, there was a flicker of sadness that passed through her eyes, a silent plea that urged me to understand. She had always been my anchor, the person who filled our home with warmth and laughter, but lately I sensed a fracture in her spirit. It was as if she were caught in a storm of conflicting emotions, torn between the love she had for her family and the truth that threatened to unravel it all. Caleb, blissfully unaware of the complexities swirling around him, continued to play in his own world. I envied his innocence, a bubble that shielded him from the chaos that threatened to consume us. One afternoon, I found him in the backyard, digging a small hole and talking to the worms he unearthed. His laughter floated through the air, a sweet melody that contrasted sharply with the heaviness in my heart. In that moment, I wanted to shield him from the reality of our family's secrets, to preserve his joy for as long as possible. But deep down, I knew that the truth had a way of creeping into the light, regardless of our desires to hide it. With every passing day, the tension in our home grew, like a storm cloud gathering overhead. I felt a surge of determination building within me, a desire to confront the truths that had haunted us for too long. I spent hours in my room, scribbling in my journal, trying to process everything that had happened. I had always been a fighter, and now I needed to channel that energy into something constructive. I knew that if I allowed fear and uncertainty to dictate my actions, I would risk losing my family entirely. It was time for me to step into the role of a leader, to guide us through this tumultuous chapter with courage. One evening, I gathered the courage to sit down with David. It felt monumental, a necessary step towards breaking the silence that had suffocated us. I found him in the living room, staring blankly at the television, though it was clear that he wasn't really watching. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my heart pounding in my chest, and settled into the chair opposite him. "Dad," I began softly, my voice trembling slightly, "can we talk?" He turned his head slightly, as if just realizing I was there, and nodded slowly. The conversation unfolded awkwardly at first, with my words fumbling over the deep-seated emotions we both carried. I expressed my confusion, my hurt, and my desperate need to understand the choices he had made. David listened, his expression shifting from blankness to something akin to remorse. He opened up about his struggles, the demons that had haunted him long before I came into existence. I could see the pain etched into his features, a pain that had now become palpable to me. He spoke of his mistakes, the moments he had chosen escape over engagement, and the regret that swirled around his decisions like a permanent fog. "I never wanted to hurt you or your mother," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought I was protecting you by staying silent." I could feel the gravity of his admission weighing heavily in the room. It became clear that my father's silence had not been a choice of indifference. It was a misguided attempt to shield us from his own failures. As I listened, a glimmer of compassion began to seep through my anger, slowly replacing it with understanding. I realized that he, too, was navigating his own storm, just as I was. After that night, I felt a shift in our dynamic. David began making small efforts to connect with me, each one a tentative step toward rebuilding our relationship. We shared quiet moments over dinner, and he would ask about my day, slowly drawing out the layers of my world. My heart swelled with hope, but I also felt the weight of my mother's secret looming over us, a specter that threatened to shatter the fragile peace we were beginning to construct. I needed to address that too, for I understood that true healing could only happen if we confronted all the shadows in our lives. I decided to talk to Ruth next. Finding the right moment was crucial, and after a few days of observing her, I sensed that she was ready to share. One afternoon, while we were cleaning up the kitchen together, I took a deep breath and asked her what she had been holding back. Ruth paused, her hands stilling mid-motion as she glanced at me, surprise etched on her face. "Marisol, she started, but the words caught in her throat. I felt a rush of urgency. I needed her to know that it was okay to be honest, that I was ready to hear whatever she had to say. With a quiet resolve, I promised her that we could face this together, that nothing would tear us apart if we were brave enough to confront it. As I spoke, her eyes filled with tears, and in that moment, I knew I was finally opening the door to the truth that had lingered in the shadows for far too long. The vulnerability between us was palpable, and as we began to unravel the tapestry of secrets, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer just a scared teenager. I was becoming the voice of change in my family, determined to break the cycle of silence that had bound us for years.